Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. I am excited to be here with you today to talk about the power of pie, how to connect and collaborate through culinary delights. And I am excited to bring to you from across the pond, the East Coast, is Valentina Raffoni. She is the founder of Beyond the Event and the Pie Network. Hello, Valentina.
Hi, how are you today?
I am good, thank you. So tell us about everybody. She reached out to me because she's been watching the show and she wanted to really talk about food and beverage because she really likes to make sure that food and beverage is inclusive and is inspiring and is engaging and delicious. And so I'm excited to talk to her about what the kinds of events that she does over in the UK, in London, and in Spain, right? Mm-hmm. And so tell us about what is Beyond the Event and the Pie Network.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So first of all, I'm a big foodie. So food is important to me in every part of my life. I think there's a saying that's like, some people eat to live and some people live to eat. I'm definitely the live to eat part. Or people ask me, like, are you hungry? Like, I'm always hungry. So you don't need to ask me, should we have dinner? Should we have lunch? I'm always hungry. Just assume that because I'm always looking for food. But to answer your question, Beyond the Event is my own company that I started this year, actually. It is just me at the moment. So I'm a one-woman show. But what that company aims to do is go beyond the event. There are so many events, both virtually, in person, and it can be overwhelming for attendees to RSVP, to ultimately attend. And that's why, especially now in 2024, you need to stand out to make those events memorable. So the whole idea on the event is going beyond just a standard event and turning those into an experience. And that's what I specialize in. I would love to get into the nitty-gritty and look at the small details that really make attendees feel like a wow moment when they're at an event, and then they leave and they tell everyone about it, because if your attendees are leaving and they're not telling anyone, then you're doing something wrong. So what I do at Beyond the Event is I strategize, I manage, and I produce events internationally, but I have a lot of clients in the UK where I'm from, and also here in Madrid in Spain, which is where I'm now living. But I do a lot of virtual events, so they could be anywhere in the world. And I love it. And then the Pie Network is something I've also started this year. This year has been a big year of elevating myself. I'm an event professional by degree, then kind of moved into the community space during the pandemic when a lot of things were online, and now transitioned back into the events industry. And I realized I didn't have the community of events people that I had with the community of community people. And I was like, okay,
right.
How do I find these people? And as a community person, what we generally tend to do is create a community for the problem that we're trying to solve. So I was like, okay. True. I was literally laying in bed one day and I was like, people in events, P-I-E, pie. And that's kind of where it kind of went from there. So we're called the Pie Network, which just stands for people in events. And what we do is we come together both virtually and in person to connect, learn and share and eat pie, basically.
I love eating pie.
Yeah, because most people love pie, and there's lots of different varieties of pie. Very sweet. Usually you can cater to everybody with some sort of pie. And I love the way that it's a whole pie that you can cut into slices and share with one another. And that's something that we really bring through in the kind of purpose of the network. Everyone has their own pie decimal, PI, part of pie. And we're a never ending circle of event professionals that literally just want to come together and meet other people in the space, because we all know when we're organizing events and we need to find a catering, we need to find audio visual, we need to find, if we don't know people in that space, it can take a long time to do that research. So why not just have a network of those people around you, reach out to them and say, hey, I'm looking for this. And someone's like, I know someone. And that recommendation.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's what we do at the Pie Network. We've got an event this evening, actually, right after this, where we're going to be talking about how to charge with confidence for your event services, because we love help our members overcome event challenges, because we all know there's quite a lot of them out there.
Yes.
That's my network.
Awesome. And are you doing that virtually, or you'll do that virtually? Okay.
Yeah, that's going to be virtually. So we have members from 7 different countries in the network. So what I've been doing is 1 month is a virtual event, 1 month is an in-person event, because the majority of our members are in the UK, kind of in London area, which is where we launched. It would be great if anyone is interested for me to come to their city and do a Pie Network event. I would love to do it. That is the goal. But for now, it's London and virtual.
Okay. All right. No, that's awesome. So when you reached out to me and you're like, I love making sure that food is that connector. So what sparked as an event professional, what was initially sparked your passion for making sure that events, the food and beverage at events, was that connector?
So I've been to a lot of events, and for me, usually those events are at times when you would be eating, first of all. So you're either starting to get hungry or you are hungry, which once someone is hungry, or even worse, gets hangry, that affects your whole demeanor and the way that you are then going to engage in anything. So that's why, in my opinion, food and beverage is crucial to an event. And it doesn't have to be like a full-on buffet or fancy food, but something there for people to connect over. Because a lot of the time, if you're going to events, you may not know a lot of people. And a great way to get to know people is over food, whether you're sharing, you've both got the same thing on your plate, or you're both at the bar together getting a drink. Those kind of having food and beverage at your events can help facilitate conversations, can help make people feel more comfortable, especially if you're on your own, and also can help you feel more motivated and focused. Because I know for a fact, if I'm at an event and I'm hungry, that is all I can think about. Like, I'm not going to be listening to whoever is speaking. I'm not going to be enjoying myself. So whenever I RSVP to an event, I'm like, what food and drink are you going to be selling? Is there going to be food and drink? Because I feel like that's important. It brings people together. It makes you feel, and that means that you're going to enjoy that experience more.
Right. No, I agree with that. And and I told this story a couple of weeks ago too, is like my friend David went into an event and he had just finished working out, and it was the time for dinner or whatever, but he went to the bar because he wanted something to drink, non-alcoholic. And it was just soda and high sugar things and alcohol and water. And he wanted something more than water. He kind of scanned the room and he turned around and walked out.
Yeah.
And I mean, in that opportunity to network and that opportunity to build business and make new connections was lost because of what was not available to satiate him and not to make him hangry in that sense. So I agree with you. And it has so many different levels to it as well. So we were chatting before, and do you have a pet peeve about this? I mean, I know you just said when you're hungry. What are your biggest pet peeves about the food and beverage that's served at these events or not served at these events?
I think I have a number of pet peeves, if I'm honest. But the first one that comes to mind is asking about dietary requirements and then not adhering to them. Like, for example, you sign up for an event and do you have any dietary requirements? it's yes, I'm vegan. And then you get there and there's nothing there. I've seen that happen before, and it means that people can't enjoy and other people are, and it makes people feel isolated. So that's the first one. The second one, which has just come to my mind, is like finger food that is sticky. Like, yeah, there's some finger foods that are okay to have in an event, especially when you're speaking to a lot of people. But when your hands get sticky and you've got to carry things, like, it just becomes awkward. Like chicken wings, for example. Chicken wings are great. They're very tasty. But like at some events, they're just not the right thing. And then people are just like, their hands are just like this. They don't know what to do. So yeah, anything that's like, I'm laughing at sticky things.
It's a really good point. You don't think about it. And even asking your caterers on those past hors d'oeuvres, I'm like, I have never really thought to ask that question in a way. I mean, you would have thought the caterer has thought through what that little finger food is and how it's going to be consumed. But when it comes out, you're like, what?
Yeah, I think that's something that we all need to think more about, is how our attendees will eat this food. It's not always about, okay, what is it? How are they going to eat it? Like, if you're not providing plates, for example, like they've got a drink in their hand, that means they've only got this hand. Like, it becomes awkward. And again, it affects the experience. And that's why food and drink is so important. And you really have to sit down and strategize around that part on its own, almost.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the two pet peeves that come to mind.
No, and like thinking about, and you're like, okay, you've got your hands full, and then is there a table? Right.
Yeah.
Can I put my drink down somewhere? And then it just pops in. Are there high tables and then are there low tables? Right. Mm-hmm. And for somebody who's short in stature or as a wheelchair user, right? But how do you, and they do have those fancy plates that have the hole in them. I think they use them mostly at festivals that you can hold it's got the glass holder, but it's usually a plastic glass and not, because we're at events that, yeah. No, I love that pet peeve. It's going to make me really think through it, right? And which then now reminds me of I ordered a gazpacho for an event this was last year, and it was a little gazpacho shooter. Well, that team like pulverized it, made it into a juice instead of like the thick that a gazpacho is, and it literally tasted like salad dressing. And I'm like, what? I'm like, to chef, how are you serving this? It was just like salad dressing. I'm like, no. Yeah.
No. Yeah. That's good. And that's another thing to think about, is we don't always like see the food before the event or the food before. And I know that's not really something that happens a lot. I mean, usually do tastings when you're having a wedding, but like it's important to ask the questions about how things are served. And are you serving the gazpacho in a traditional way? Like you want at the event is to see something coming out and being like, what is that?
Yeah.
And you're paying for that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, well, and it also reminds me of two different events where the food, and one of the events I was actually, as the culinary concierge, reviewing the menu, making sure everything was labeled for my client correctly with allergens and different dietary needs. And I don't even remember what it was, but when it got served, it was on a crostini. And nowhere on the description in what was presented to us did it say that it was served on a piece of bread. And they had labeled it gluten-free. And I'm like, how can it be gluten-free and I'm like, so you have to really, I mean, we as meeting professionals have to sit down and strategize with those catering teams and get more details. Yeah.
I actually had an event a couple of months ago where we ordered sliders, and when they arrived, the sliders weren't in the buns. You had to reheat them, but there was no instructions or anything that said these were going to come separate. Luckily, we had a kitchen and we had a way of doing that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to serve those.
Wow.
Because, we didn't.
You ordered them from a catering company or from a restaurant?
From a catering company.
Wow.
Yeah. So luckily we were able to do it. But if you didn't have the means, like you then wasted, we had 3 boxes of sliders that we wouldn't have been able to get out.
So the buns came in a bag over here, and then the
buns were like half assembled with the tomato and the lettuce, and I think there was mayonnaise and ketchup, but then the burger was separate. So you physically had to heat them up and then place them all in. Yeah.
Did they provide you gloves to do that?
Nothing.
Wow. That's mind-boggling.
Yeah. And then the other 2 boxes of burgers we ordered, I think it was pulled chicken, and we ordered some like tiny vegan bagels. They were all assembled, all ready to go. And it's just like, okay, now we've got to spend X amount of time assembling mini burgers.
Which you did not account for in your event.
No, exactly.
Yeah, no, exactly. Okay, I mentioned tables a second ago, and you and I were having this discussion before we got on, because I really do like this thought process that you have on this, the importance of space management when you're planning out a food and beverage event, right? And I mentioned an event that I went into, the general session. It was an inclusion event. The title was inclusion, but not a single person in a wheelchair could have gotten into that meeting space. But it wasn't a food and beverage function. But talk about what you mean by the importance of space management when you're designing your event.
Yeah. So what I mean by that is if you're going to have food and beverage at your event, you need to think about where that's going to be in the space that you're using, whether it's a separate room to where the main event is happening, or if it's in the same room. Because just imagine your attendees are hungry, they're about to have lunch, everyone is going to go and want to get food at the same time. So you have to think about what is that journey of people, I guess, picking up the plate to begin with, if there's plates, and making their way around as a queue is forming, as other people are kind of mingling around, and how it's set up. Because I went to an event where there was a massive buffet, lots of options, but like you couldn't reach half of the things because they were on such wide tables that you were then reaching over other food to get things. And because there was so much all in a small area, people weren't moving as quickly because you're trying to figure out, okay, what is this? What is this? Which meant the queue became longer. People are spiraling around. No one was moving quick enough. People are getting hungry. So what I would recommend, if you're using a space where you're having food, is split up your food into different areas rather than one big, long kind of, so people have space and there isn't like a massive group of people in one area at one time. Also think about how high your tables are to allow for those who maybe are in areas to be able to serve themselves. The last thing is that they want is for someone else to have to serve them because the table is too high for them, for example.
Yeah. Oh, no, I've been to plenty of those. I remember going to one that was in the catering industry, and it was a bar table. I mean, it was this tall. I mean, it was up to my chest how tall the table was, and they're one-sided, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, because that table you just described to me sounds like it was just one-sided and you couldn't go
against a wall. So that's another thing you can do is position the table so that 2 lines of people can go down them.
Right.
And also think about, I've just thought about this, after you've got a lot of people that need to put their plates in the trash. There's never any trash bins anyway. And people are just walking around like, what do I do with this? And then they just leave it somewhere.
Right.
Which means somebody else has then got to tidy that up. And it then looks messy. Usually it's the event manager,
right,
as me, that has to go around and clean up. Like, think about the journey from picking up that plate to putting that plate into the trash for attendees and make it as seamless as possible and let them in. That food is meant to be an enjoyable experience.
Right.
Don't
Yes.
make it stressful.
Well, and I wanted to show this picture. I found this on iStock a couple of years ago, but this is exactly what you're kind of talking about.
Yeah.
The table is too wide. And I mean, those people look like they're having fun talking to each other, but it also looks like this buffet was completely just never touched. So what are they actually eating? Has anybody actually gotten to the buffet yet? Right. Or it was, I mean, I know it's a photo shoot, but still, that's just too much. Like the hummus is in the middle of the table. Yeah.
Too many bowls. And like, also there's, you can't see it, but there's no labels. Like,
right.
You don't know what is what. Like, I don't eat fish, for example. And yes, I feel really tell if something has fish in or not. But like, you never know when you've got a mixed salad that has maybe mayonnaise in it, for example. Like, and same with those that have dietary requirements. They need to know, is it gluten-free? Is it vegan? Because that's important. So label your food.
Right, exactly. Well, and especially when it's a hidden ingredient and it's not easily accessible. And just for everybody to know that when you do have mayonnaise in it, it contains eggs. It doesn't contain milk, because people get that messed up all the time. Okay, so because you're talking about labeling, and I know you in the UK, you have some stricter laws about allergen labeling than we do in the States, because ours is still just on prepackaged foods. How is that done there? And have you seen caterers get better at it? Because the law has been around for 14 years now, right? But even in Spain, have you seen it? Is it done well in restaurants versus catering companies, et cetera?
I mean, Spain is very, very different. Even now, when you ask for like a vegetarian option, they offer you tuna. It's very much like they're very much into their meat and fish. Like it's taken a long time in my opinion, because I also have communities around food here in Madrid. And there's a great question that comes up a lot, that it's taken a long time for a lot of restaurants to take on dietary requirements and change their menus to adapt to that. But it is getting better. And those that are doing a good job are like really promoting what they can and can't do. I mean, there's even a restaurant here. It's a famous pizza chain, Italian pizzas. They have a gluten-free restaurant. All the pizzas in that restaurant are gluten-free, so there's no cross-contamination whatsoever. So those that want to enjoy pizza but can't have gluten know that if they go there, they're safe, which is really important. In the UK, I mean, I don't spend that much time there to be able to give an accurate picture, but I know that the dietary requirements are that there's a lot of focus on that in restaurants and in catering. But I do feel that there could be more work to be done, because often I've had to ask catering companies in particular for events like, do you cater for this? Because I can't see it on their website. It's not clear enough to me whether they do or they don't. And when you ask, they're like, oh, yeah, we do. And it's like, you could have just, if you'd made it clear enough, then I wouldn't have had to ask. And that can maybe deter people from going with a particular catering company. If they can't see it on the website, they can cater to these requirements. So more work, I think, does need to be done to one, improve menus to allow for options to be well for everyone, and how the companies then say what they can do. Right.
Now, exactly. And I was sharing with somebody last week, and that reminds me, I have to email them this screen, but I found a website, a catering company that like they have 4 main venues that they cater in, and I don't remember what city they're in, but on each venue on their website, they said for visionary, here's how this venue works for those who are visually impaired, those mobility, here's the parking, here's this. I thought it was really interesting and a unique way to demonstrate how they're paying attention to their customers.
Yeah. I don't think you can over communicate. The whole point of a catering company or a venue is to bring in customers. So openly say, we have this and this. If you don't have it, if your venue is not accessible or you cannot cater for certain dietary requirements, then just say that you can't. Don't make people think, can they, can't they? Because again, us event managers who are trying to plan a lot of things within an event, we haven't got time to go back and forth with you to find out something when you could have just been very clear about it in the beginning. Right. Unfortunately, our venue is not accessible. We're like, okay, well, I'm not going there then. We're working on so many different things at once. We haven't got much time to plan an event, and we want to make sure we get every part right. So, yeah, time is of the essence.
Time is of the essence, especially when we're doing them at the last minute. A lot of them are playing, hey, we want to do an event in 2 weeks. How can we do that? Okay, so what are ways that you feel or you think that events can elevate their food and beverage offerings to create a memorable experience for attendees? One thing is the labeling, but do you have other things that you think about? I know you and I have talked about the sensory engagement aspect of that. So maybe I'm throwing two questions into one there, but what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, going to the sensory part first, thinking about what foods smell really good. I always talk about pizza, and I know a lot of people have opinions on pizza, being like, oh, it's just another pizza party. But pizza, the smell of pizza is such a comforting smell to a lot of people. The melting of the cheese, the tomato, the bread, all combined. It's something that a lot of people, if they walked past a restaurant that had pizza in it, they're like, oh, that smells nice. So thinking about the smells of certain foods, because if you were going to have, I don't know, fried fish at your event, the smell of that may not be the best smell to engulf your venue for an hour, 2 hours, that can make people really feel uncomfortable potentially. I mean, I know it would make me, because I don't eat fish, but like think about the smell of particular foods and how that might make people feel at an event. For example, if you're on your own at an event, you're not really sure who to talk to, but you love pizza, and that smell of pizza just makes you feel a lot more comfortable. You then start kind of slumping in your chair, you feel more comfortable. You might even say hello to the person next to you. It can help people open up to then start talking with others. And all it was a smell of pizza cooking.
Right. Yeah.
So that's really important. Think about that and try not to have food that smells, that has a distinct smell that a lot of people may not enjoy, because I appreciate different smells are liked by different people. So that's one way you can do to elevate. Options, rather than having just one or two options, trying to have as many options as possible. But again, if you're going to do that, when we talked about the spacing, make sure it's spaced out so people can see what those options are. That's really important. And yes, I feel like this is something that somebody did an event in July that I went to, and I'm calling it surprise and delight. So people know that there's maybe going to be lunch. That's fine. But don't tell them that you're going to bring out popcorn later in the day, or you're going to bring out pastries. Surprise and delight your attendees by bringing out some snacks they don't know are coming, because they'll be like, oh, what's that? And then you'll see people congregating, and then that will be a surprise for them. So that can really elevate an experience, because let's be honest, if we're going to an all-day event, there's not many people that take a whole bag of snacks with them for the day. I mean, you might do, but after lunch or before lunch before and after lunch, you might get peckish. Surprise them with something small, such as popcorn or...
Right. And that's if you're popping it right in front of them too, that's another smell that engages them. Yeah.
And that's another thing to think about, is if you're popping it in front of them with that popcorn machine and someone's serving it, that can elevate the experience. It's just popcorn. You could have just put it in the microwave and brought it out inside those popcorn holders, or elevate the experience by having someone stand there popping it for them.
Right.
It makes people feel like you've really thought about the experience.
Yeah.
So those are my top tips.
Well, and I'm thinking too, even though, and it brings me back to a popcorn machine. I did that for a client event, but it automatically comes with butter on it, right? So, which deterred then the people who were allergic to butter or allergic to milk, as well as the vegans. But while you were talking about that, I'm like, the old fashioned, how we used to make popcorn, not in a microwave, but in the pan on the stove. Like if somebody was like stirring that up right there, instead of doing it in the big machine, I mean, it's not as, but then you could have people put what they want, their toppings on it, the butter, things like that. So that's another way. Yeah.
Like customizing, DIY assembling of food. It connects people to the food when they've got to do something to the food. I mean, don't get them to like assemble their burgers and stuff, like not that, but like adding toppings to it, for example, is really fun, because people may like caramel sauce, and somebody might like chocolate and strawberry. Like they get to choose. Everyone's got the same thing, but they get to choose. Like they get to personalize it, which will be fun.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So Can you share an example? I mean, you've just given a couple of examples where the culinary choices made a significant impact on that attendee engagement and memory, and I have another question to you too. Was it a good experience or a bad experience where food and beverage was used, I'm going to say, incorrectly or not in the right way?
So the one that comes to mind is I went to an event in Prague.
Mm-hmm.
And during, after the main day had finished, and we were kind of in the networking session, and in Prague, they're known for their beer in these big cups. I don't know what cups are called, but they had somebody there pouring that into the cups for you. So, for a lot of us who maybe didn't have time to go out into the city and explore Prague and have one of those beers in one of those big cups, we could do it inside of that event, which was really cool. Obviously, there was only beer,
right?
Alcohol in. So if you didn't like beer or you weren't drinking alcohol, there wasn't much else available. So it's two sides. It was good that they were connecting to the culture of what happens in a lot of bars and restaurants in the city. But on the other hand, if you didn't want to drink that, there wasn't anything else.
Right.
So, yeah. I mean, you aren't going to be able to cater to everyone, but you can certainly try.
Right. Exactly.
It goes back to what you were talking about earlier, and having options for non-alcoholic. It's not about soft drinks and water. You can have mocktails. You can have lots of other, non-alcoholic beer here in Spain is huge. Almost
really?
As big as regular beer.
Really?
If you go into the supermarket, the aisle for non-alcoholic versus alcoholic is almost the same.
Wow. In my grocery store, there's only 5 options.
No, it's huge. It really is huge. But we have a big culture here of drinking on the terraces all day, every day, whether you're working or not. So people like to have the taste of beer, even they're working, so they probably shouldn't. So that's why I think it's so popular.
Interesting.
But non-alcoholic options is something that we all should think about at our events, because we can't just assume everyone wants to drink alcohol. And some people don't want to have a Coke or a glass of water. They want something a bit more adult-like.
Right. Exactly. Now, okay, so you said the beer was is it also spirits as well in wine? Do you see that as well? The non-alcoholic versions.
Spirits are getting popular. Non-alcoholic gin seems to be the newest thing. I haven't tried it because I'm not a big gin fan, but wine, I wouldn't say wine is that popular. Yeah, I would say if I was going to an event and I was expecting non-alcoholic options to be there, I would expect there to be non-alcoholic beer and then some sort of mocktail that is not just orange and cranberry juice put together, something a bit more full.
The one that I went to that just mixed 2 sodas together to make the non-alcoholic. Yeah.
Oh.
I'm okay, no, thank you. What challenges as an event professional who's really focused on pushing that food experience to including that into your events, what challenges have you faced in fostering that collaboration between, because and I'll give you an example, an event I did this summer, it was Greece and mobility, a perfect partnership, right? And so I was trying to get the caterer to work with me on what foods and beverages are a partnership, like macaroni and cheese or mashed potatoes and gravy. And it just went right over her head. So do you have, in trying to foster that and incorporate the food and beverage into your events, do you utilize that theme concept or how do you get your caterers on board with what you're doing and trying to accomplish with that event?
So I haven't done anything to that level, but I have also found those difficulties with caterers. They seem to be very set in this is the menu. We don't deviate from the menu. And I get it. They have a lot of customers and they've clearly worked on this particular menu and this is what they offer. But so, it can be challenging when you want to do something a little bit different and they're not really willing to work with you. But what has worked in the past is when you sit down and you explain like what your event is about and what you're trying to achieve with the food and beverage experience, because just go in and say, I'm looking for this without any kind of context. It's hard for them to understand, well, why do you want this? And then they often just push back and say, sorry, we can't do that. It's all about building a relationship with the catering agencies so they can find ways of, maybe they have existing menu items that they can put together, for example. And that's the thing, you're only going to find the right catering person after potentially going through a few that aren't so great. And once you find that person, usually they are then more and more open to helping you with what you need, which in the beginning, they probably weren't. So advice here is it's going to take some time, build relationships with catering, explain what you're trying to achieve. And you should be able to then like get what you want from them.
Gotcha. No, that's great advice, because it is, when you're looking at a variety of different caterers, there's different things that come into play. The price, their creativity, their ability to manage dietary restrictions, whatever your purpose is, sustainability even. Yeah. Like what are your sustainable practices across the board? And those all come into play when you're trying to select a caterer. But I also do think giving them the theme and what you're trying to accomplish with that food and beverage event, kind of actually going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, is really thinking through, being strategic about what your event is. Is it a standing reception? Is it a seated thing? What that really plays into what kind of caterer that you will hire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you need them on site as well, like caterers that will just kind of leave the food and go, they're serving the food. Like there is so much to think about. And like, I feel like we don't do enough thinking about it when we plan our events. And I kind of know why. And a lot of the time it's because people like me are planning events by ourselves. Like we only have one of us and we're doing all of this. It's difficult. Like if there's people watching, like, yeah, but how can I do all of this by myself? You just have to like dedicate time to certain parts of your event and do the best you can to make each part a memorable experience. You don't have to go overboard. Like when it's not about having like a Michelin star food and people serving it, I don't know, in weird ways. I mean, it's just really thinking, it's putting yourselves in the attendee's shoes and thinking, would I be happy with this? Would this, if I was at an event, would I be happy to eat this? Would I enjoy it? That's all you need to do. And sometimes that takes a bit of time, just sitting with yourself and just going through the whole journey, the experience that an attendee will go through.
Well, it also comes into play too, is like, I don't want you to pick food that only you will eat. That's your favorite, right? You actually have to think through your attendees. What will they enjoy? It's not about you and I don't like veal, or I don't like peanut butter and jelly, or I can't eat peanut butter and jelly, or I can't eat fish, right? Unless you can't be in the room with it, of course. I mean, that plays into it, but it really does take a lot of strategy. So are there any emerging trends that you're paying attention to besides eating pie? And I do want to ask about the pie, like, I want to talk about what kinds of pies you're eating.
I mean, something that I'm really trying to learn more about and also implement into my events is being more sustainable. I know it's something that's been spoken about for a number of years now, but I still feel like there's a lot more work to be done to make the food and beverage part of our events more sustainable, because I'm going to events where I'm still seeing single-use plastics. And it's like, when you're just like, oh, like, come on, like we've been talking about this. So it's not a new trend, I guess, but it's something that I feel like is going to become more and more important. And that's why us as event professionals need to get on board about what should be done and what can be done on our side to communicate with catering to find out what sustainability stance is and trying to push forward. We can't have this. We need to switch it out for this because it makes a difference.
It does. Okay. So one final question for you. And this is what I ask all of my guests. So what does a safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experience look like or feel like to you?
So a safe, inclusive, and sustainable experience is somewhere that has enough room, somewhere that is accessible to all, like that everyone can enjoy the experience no matter who they are. And for the safety, like, it's difficult to say what a safe experience is, but I feel like just as an attendee, you walk in and you don't feel like you need to leave. Like sometimes I go to an event and you're like, this is a bit weird. Like, I'm not sure. Like, go walking into an event, you're like, yes, I want to be here all day. I feel comfortable. I can move around. I can do everything that everybody else is doing. That is what that means to me.
No, I like that. I mean, because you do, it has to feel welcoming. It has to feel like, and we were having a conversation on LinkedIn. There was a post thread about going to an event and maybe you're new and maybe you're by yourself and everybody's kind of clustered together talking to the people that they know, right? And does that emit an environment where, hey, come talk to us in our little group here? How do you engage in that? So it's the food that we talked about earlier. It all plays into that, making you feel safe, because making you feel safe does mean, hey, I don't feel like I'm an outsider in here.
Yeah. No, definitely.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I know you've got actually, what's your favorite pie to eat?
Oh, no, I'm definitely an apple pie.
Oh, yeah.
Although tonight's pie, so at our events, we encourage everyone on our virtual events to bring your own pie. So okay. But our in-person, I provide pie. My pie for tonight is a cherry pie.
My favorite.
Here in Madrid, it's actually quite hard to find pie as what we would know as pie, but the local supermarket has started doing these like miniature pies, and it's a cherry one that says it serves 3, but I am not sharing it with anybody.
My Nancy just put in, bring your own pie.
Yeah, that's BYOP.
BYOP, yes. Love it.
You can eat pie any time of the day. Any time of the day.
Oh, I eat it. When I make it, I eat it for breakfast the next morning because it's like so darn good. And it's cherries. It's fruit, right?
Yeah. It's fruit and a bit of pastry.
Well, and I did last week, one of my members of my Les Dames d'Escoffier chapter here in North Carolina was doing a fundraiser for World Central Kitchen. And so she needed people to donate gift cards or donate pies or whatever. So I said, I'll donate a gluten-free pie. My pie went for $60. I'm very excited about that. Yeah, it was a fundraiser. So
the new career move.
Exactly.
Yeah. Open a pie shop.
That's the only one that I really make and I make it like 3 times a year. So anyways, well, thank you so much, Valentina. All right. And I have up here, let's see how to get in touch with you. It's on LinkedIn. I am Valentina Raffonis. That is your Instagram handle as well, right?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you. Good luck with your event tonight. Have fun. And I look forward to talking to you. And everyone, thank you for tuning in to Eating at a Meeting. We're here every single week. Next week episode is about the Americans with Disabilities Act Amendments Act. And it is the 16th anniversary of that act becoming law next Wednesday, actually on the September 25th. So tune into that. And until then, stay safe and eat well. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.